wellnesscouch.com, streaming wellness into your lives.
Welcome to Nourishing the Mother, featuring your hosts Bridget Wood and Julie Tenner.
Hello and welcome to Nourishing the Mother. I'm Bridget Wood.
And I'm Julie Tenner. And today's podcast is sponsored by Bella Bell Nail Couture, who is a local businesswoman to us but does ship. So if you're not local, you can still check her out and we'll put all her links on Facebook. But she does a nail polish range that she makes and colours and designs on her own, and they are 5 free. So 5 of the most nasty chemicals that are in nail polishes are not in her. She's specifically 5 free, which is why we loved her so much. And she herself is a, woman on her own awakened journey, just living out really an aspect of herself in a business that's really quite extraordinary. I love it.
It's beautiful. And I have to say too, she also has a kind of somewhat chemical-free nail polish remover too, because that can often, you might be able to find the 5 free nail polishes, but it's often quite hard to find a non-toxic nail polish remover.
It's interesting you say that, because I had never come across the 5 free nail polishes until I met her at a market.
I've seen them in other places, but I have never been able to find a non-toxic nail polish remover, hence I don't really use it.
Yeah.
But hers is fantastic.
Yeah. And her colours are gorgeous.
Yes.
So definitely check her out, Bella Bell Nail Couture. Now, today's podcast, How We Live a Sensual Life. We thought we didn't really touch on that last week when we were talking about how we live our awakened version of our own lives and how we integrate the tools that we talk about on a daily practice. And we didn't really touch on at all how we embody within that the sensual aspects.
Yeah, last week was really about how we live in alignment with our own values, whereas now we really want to take that and go, okay, well, how do we live in deep connection with our senses and our feminine self and how that leads to awakening in itself too, and how that leads to nourishment. So I'm going to let you keep that one off, Jules.
Wow. I was just thinking in my head, go Bridget. So where do we want to go with this? Okay. Are we taking it as a personal story or as a set of tools? What are we doing here?
I think we're going to have to interweave a little bit of both so that we know what they look like. And I think, I want to hand over to you because really, and if anybody's listened to the podcast for long enough, developing a practice of connecting with the feminine, and developing a practice of awareness of my own attitudes to my body and my femininity and myself as a woman was an absolute pivotal step for me to regain my fertility and be pregnant with this baby. And that came a lot through the conversations on Nourishing the Mother and my connection with Jules, who really has embodies a lot of those things for me. So I think that this is really your court. But I would, of course, love to give examples of where it's been profound for me on my own journey. But I would love to hear, I guess, what a lot of your practices are for grounding in your own sensual magnificence.
I love that word. I just want to say thank you. I didn't realise I was part of your journey on awakening that.
Really?
Yeah, no, I didn't.
Oh, there you go.
Really lovely.
Yeah, maybe I assumed it goes without saying, but no, a key part. So thank you.
Thanks.
No, it's a little bit of a loving happening here live on our podcast.
Feminine sensuality. I just felt a zing of energy go through my body. I love it that much. And at the same time feel so heartbroken with the women I see around me when they are not aligned with their sensuality, or they don't realise it, or they don't own it and claim it. Or, that they don't even know that they can. I think that's probably, it's so interesting, isn't it, when we think about our genius, it's also, we look at what are the things we do so effortlessly, but also what are the things that are so deeply wounding. And it is literally both of those things for me. What is it that I am so deeply wounded in as women is when I look at the beautiful women that I intimately have supported on health journeys or have intimate relationships with, is when they don't relish their own magnificence and step up into it in its many different forms. And it really, I feel like there's a piece of my heart that just breaks off every time I see women not choosing that. And, part of that has been me, right? I might only see that in other women because that's been my story.
Yeah.
And has hence led to the massive void that has led to such a life story of searching for it.
Yeah,
right?
and I would say too, I mean, it's a slight deviation here, but that is why, you know, years after not practicing as a doula, you are still getting inquiries from people who want you to do this work.
It's funny, isn't it?
But this is because you have that rare gift of helping women access something that they feel they never had before. But they always had, they just didn't know how to.
That's right.
You know, so you give women that sense of nourishment that they didn't know that they were missing. And that's your genius.
Oh, thanks. Thanks. I'm really ready to step into that now. I feel I can see that. But that's what we talk about, is paving the way, right?
Yeah.
Is you don't need someone to tell you X, Y, and Z. You need someone to just, you know, clear away the cobwebs that were shielding the path that was already there for you, you know? And I think that's the genius in any form of coaching, isn't it? Is to just brush away the veil that's been put in front of you.
Yeah.
Okay, back to sensual practice though. So, where do I start with this? Maybe reframing sensuality. So I think sensuality often gets confused with sexuality, but they're in fact two very, very different aspects. And one sure is a pathway to the other, but they can be utterly separate, and that living a sensual life increases your sexual life. So sensuality is literally the toolkit of using your senses. So the ability to immerse in any moment, in any sensation, and absorb the feeling of that within your body and allow it to almost bloom and expand within you. So that is sensuality. And you have all experienced this unconsciously. You've been so moved by a piece of music that it brings you to tears or hits you with a memory. You have relished the smell of, you know, I don't know, I'm instantly thinking of a gorgeous perfume on my husband's neck or something, and it just makes you like go,
it's like a visceral reaction, like you can't even hold back the sense within your body.
Or you've seen an immensely beautiful sunset that brings you to tears. Or, you know, such a profoundly beautiful human being that you are just grateful to just witness them here.
Yes.
Or I can't even think, touch. You've touched something that feels so exquisite that you just don't want to leave this moment because it feels so good, right? This is sensuality. This is the feminine. These are the moments that aren't the doing. They're the spaces in between the breath. You know, those moments that are so still and so quiet and so internal, but that the feeling is so exquisite that it feels more powerful than anything you've experienced before. You know that.
Yeah,
it's like...
And they get you to be deeply present.
Yes, it's a paradox though, right? The feminine is a paradox because it is immensely, immeasurably more powerful than the doing aspects of the masculine and the achieving. But it's so subtle, you know?
Yeah.
It's such a paradox. And that's what I love about it, is because that's what provides the mystery of the feminine too, right? When you think you know a woman, you realise you don't. You know, and all of these things. Actually, my husband will hate me saying this, but he doesn't listen, so it's okay. We were talking about this the other day, and I have been, you know, having major Yoni awakening epiphany moments in the last couple of years. And so now it's kind of a mainstay conversation between my husband and I, which, you know, comes with a level of humour. Yeah, you know, my Yoni doesn't lie. You know, the Yoni knows. Or, you know, we can joke about it as much as I can go, oh my God, I've just realised, da-da-da.
Yeah.
And I said to him, you know, if you could like give one piece of advice about the Yoni to someone, to another man, to the next generation in a book, you know, or the billboard, right?
Yeah.
What would that be? And he goes, the Yoni is different every time. You can never pinpoint the Yoni. And I was like, I get that though, right? Is that she's unpredictable because she is the feminine and she is the paradox and she is feeling.
And isn't that just so speak of the woman too? You know, speak of who we are as creatures. That we can be so unpredictable.
And mysterious, right? I mean, the feminine has always been mysterious, and that again is the paradox of the subtlety of the, you want more and you crave more and you think you know it, and then she slips through your fingers again. You know, it's a dance. It's totally a romantically entwined relationship that you have with your own sensuality and your own feminine. And when you get a hint of that power that's hidden in that, you would just so consciously seek her out and never doubt that she was less than that, you know?
Yeah.
So I guess that's the philosophy of the backstory to where I come from, that, and I realized that, you know, so much of our society shuts down our sensuality and our feminine, and we're so boxed into not being able to move with the rhythms of our body or the seasons that we have or we feel, and that they're not honoured and we're not shown a path on how to make them move in this. And even in, you know, plenty of hippie circles where I know plenty of women who, you know, deeply live in their cycles, they still believe they can't do that in this society. That, you know, we used to always, even if we're talking about the cycle of our monthly menstrual cycle, that we would always bleed on the full moon, and that would, you know, be literally the moon cycle is our cycle. We're literally influenced so deeply by the lunar cycle as women, which is whole part of that fluid movement within our bodies and the oceans and the tides, and it's profound when you realize that, you know, the seasons, the feelings, the emotions, the subtlety of nature is literally within us.
Yes.
And yet that is literally what makes this world work. Like that is the power of it.
And I think it can be overwhelming, so overwhelming to truly grasp.
And I wouldn't say I truly grasp it.
Yeah.
But I say I get hints at it that make me go, whoa.
Yeah.
I just, you know, it brings me to my knees every time I get a hint at how enormous that is, you know. And yet these women would say that electromagnetics and the way that we're cultured and whatever shut down that ability to connect with it. But I would say that's not correct.
No, and I would disagree with that too. Because that's again getting caught up into a dogma or a belief system that we can no longer access what is inherently us.
Yeah, exactly.
It is there. That magnetism is never not there. It's there to be accessed. It's about cultivating the space and letting go and surrendering, which are also such difficult things typically for Western women to do.
Yeah, totally. And surrender is perfect, right? Because surrender is subtlety. Surrender is the silence in between, isn't it? The inward journey as opposed to the outward one. And so sensuality leads on to desire, and the feeling of desire, the feeling of feeling desirous or desirable or feeling desire within yourself is a feeling we're not used to expanding, and yet we expect ourselves to turn on the sex goddess, but we shut down all of our roots to sensuality and, you know, expanding of that pleasure within our bodies, and then we expect that we can just turn it on, and yet we have this nation where 50% of women don't orgasm during sex, right? And we wonder why that is. So desire, I don't want you to be put off by what that word means, that you don't have to be a Mae West to be desirable or to feel desire. That desire is just a connection to listening internally and knowing what you want, knowing what you deeply want. Not what your mind or your social conditioning or the person next to you is saying you should have or should want, what you deeply want. That is desire. Desire is the thing inside of you that says, come here, this is what will fill you up and make you feel good. And we choose to listen to it or not, right? You know, we want to sleep, and yet we know we've got to get work done, so we choose to do work. We choose to slip out of that and do the masculine, and the more that we slip out of those moments calling us inward, the quieter her voice gets, and the less connected we become to our desire.
And that's true because, you know, we're creating different neural pathways and our cellular memory changes. You know,
and our connection to our intuition.
Yeah, yes, but the more that you say no to those things, the more that you say, no, I'm not going to slip into that. It's almost like it's a wiring process, which means that that's less immediately accessible to you because you're continuing to make a choice that's different to what's calling you in.
And what's true for you. And this is, again, when we come to these points in our lives where we feel so misaligned that we don't recognize who we are, we don't know what we want, we're not sure where we're headed. Well, the voice of desire has been lost in that because the yoni doesn't lie, the desire doesn't lie, right?
Yeah.
And sensuality is almost our pathway to desire. The more that we awaken and you know, relax into our bodies, because that's what sensuality calls us to do. It calls us to relax into our bodies so that we can feel the immensity of emotion and feeling that's there, and pleasure. You know, pleasure is yours to have, right?
And so what does it mean for a woman who might feel quite disconnected? What does it look like to create daily habits or create regular practices to cultivate greater connection to feeling sensual as a woman?
So I think it's about looking at the ancient feminine arts of seduction, really, and what they look like. And seduction is not the form of the femme fatale where we are manipulating someone and not connected to their truth or ours. Seduction is the surrendering process to the feminine and the feeling. So what is seducing? How do you seduce someone else? Well, it's, darling, what is seducing you? Because when a woman feels turned on, juicy and seduced within her body, like no one around her stands a chance. Are you kidding? And I'm not talking about from a sexual point of view, like just even from creating a win-win, from being able to talk in another person's values, from getting something that you deeply want by meeting someone else's needs,
and it can even be, you know, connecting to your inspiration. So you might know that when you walk into a certain shop or see certain art or are in a certain home, you just feel seduced by the space you're in.
Yes, but it's about allowing that to awaken within you. Of one, recognizing it, two, letting it bloom just a little bit longer and kind of holding that feeling within your body.
And at the same time being aware of any shoulds or mind chatter that comes in to talk
disconnect
down,
you from
that. To talk down that feeling.
Yeah, definitely. So how do you awaken this within the feminine? I think it comes in many different art forms. And I think it starts with sensuality, for sure. That even if it's too hard to connect to the sensuality of being in your body and touching her and connecting with her on a physical level, that you can do that through the other senses. So by witnessing something external to you and feeling that inside your body, noticing where that emotion moves and shifts and how it feels and how you feel after feeling that, because the spaciousness that we talk about increases when you feel and take in that pleasure more. You've got more to give out. So sensuality is definitely, I would say, is key, and everyone can do sensuality in some or many forms in all of their day. So sensuality for me is such a daily habit now that I wouldn't even call it a practice anymore.
It's just a way of life.
It's a way of life. Yeah. And so sensuality starts with, you know, first thing in the morning. I don't get up out of bed even at 4:30 in the morning until I've just touched my body. It might be my heart space, it might be my breasts, it might be a run down my torso to my knees, until I've actually connected. Hi, body. Even just for a breath, and then I'm up. And then it's, how does the darkness feel? How do I feel here? What do I really want right now? And I might want a tea, or I might want a piece of toast. And it's listening to, what do I really want right now? And I ask myself that several times in a day. And when I get that thing, it's a sensual, desirous process, right? I'm seduced by the thing. I chase after, I follow the thing, and I feel the thing within me, right? So it's then noticing when I'm having, you know, coffee, I'm looking at it and I'm relishing the feeling and the sounds and the noises. I'm connected to consciously my senses and what I'm taking in any moment that I have that consciousness around me, which is several times, many times in a day. Yeah. And that if I'm not feeling, you know, lush and juicy and sexual and, you know, feeling just wonderful in my body, then I deliberately put in a practice in my day that allows me time and space to do that. So kidney breath work I do every time I'm driving in the car, so I don't even think about that anymore. That's just a car driving practice.
And is that so that you simply just you have with intention your breath going into that area? Because obviously you can't do the hands on your kidneys.
No, well, I don't need to put the hands on my kidneys anymore because
you know the breath.
Yeah, I know the breath and I intimately know where they are now in my body and how they feel. And so it's, I guess, a visualization seduction practice of on the in-breath, you see white light expanding out from them, and on the out-breath, that white light increases. And then once I've done that, if I'm on a longer drive than 5 minutes, then on my out-breath, I send that white light down to my uterus, and I see that turning into soft pink light. And then when I'm laying with my daughter at bed, or if we're reading stories or something, I do Ovarian breathing. So then I'm warming my hands up and I'm placing them over my ovaries, which, you know, you make if you make a triangle where your thumbs touch and then your 2 front fingers touch, and you place that just under your belly button on your lower pelvis, your 2 index fingers and middle fingers should just hit that sweet spot on your yoni where it feels quite good. And that is literally the V of your uterus. So you know exactly where it is. And your ovaries are literally where your palms are. So it's very conscious then to be able to do ovarian breath, which is pink light in on a breath, pink light sending it almost dripping like honey into your womb space on the out breath, pink light in on the ovaries, pink light dripping like honey into the uterus. And I have changed my menstrual cycle just by doing those 2 breath practices.
So powerful.
Which is profound, right? Because I have changed my hormonal profile to do that. I have changed the way my body works to do that. And that is literally all I've changed. But the only time I've ever been able to do that is with acupuncture. But here, I don't need someone else to do it to me, because I'm able to consciously connect to that energy and move what needs to be moved. And when I'm consciously connected to my feminine body, it pays me back, right? I have this perfect cycle. I do have a cycle directly correlated to the moon. I am intimately connected to the seasons of the feminine because I choose to intimately connect with my body. So I'm always doing those breath practices during the day at times that call to me. Then I will use the jade egg when I feel like that's something when I ask my Yoni and she says yes, which I know sounds ridiculous, but we all know that feeling, right? We know the feeling about when our body just says, or our Yoni says, yes. And when she doesn't, and when we don't listen to our no, that's when she numbs. That's when she shuts down. That's when the pleasure decreases, right? And we all have a story to some extent, to many different versions of depth and breadth of what that means for how, you know, numb that area of our body is.
I mean, and that also speaks to the very difference between the masculine and the feminine. I mean, masculine sexual energy can typically be switched on, and that's how men can get into it straight away. You know, the way to their heart is through their cock, you know, whereas for a woman, that you have to connect to their heart first to connect to the yoni, and that's that dance that needs to happen through seduction, which doesn't always happen.
No, it doesn't happen. And it is about being conscious to it, though, isn't it? And it's interesting that you say that, actually, because that's one of the main points I picked up from our weekend retreat with Sayeda Desiree, was that she was talking about positive and negative poles within the human body, and that for men, the positive pole, or the outward put, is the penis and the shaft, and the inward is the heart space. So that's their cycle, whereas we're the opposite. So our outward is our heart space, because that's where we're wanting to connect. So we've almost got like a etheric penis coming out of our heart space, wanting to probe into
that's
them.
An interesting visual.
Well, do you know what I mean? Like, that's what she was saying, is that women get so angry that he doesn't connect with me, but that's the same as them, you know, of us going, all he wants is sex, because it's our 2 different poles wanting to penetrate the other to create connection and a complete circuit.
But they're each asking for it in a different way.
So when you understand the divine feminine and the divine masculine, you can actually see that at play, and therefore you can learn to consciously create a circuit that works really well with that.
Yes.
But I would say that it's more got to do with the feminine. The feminine, yes, we are always forward thinking and creation, and that is the way we are designed. We are designed to come up with the ideas and the concepts and the bigger picture, and the masculine is designed to follow that and to provide that for us. And when we see that as a process, it works really well, and it's the same thing in relationships. But I digress. Back to sensuality. So jade egg practices certainly do, and that has also created enormous pleasure for me within my life. And look, do you know what? I say that's it, but that's what it is. It's about, I'm constantly checking in and relaxing into my body. I am listening to my deep body yes or my deep body no at any point in time, not just sex. It could be a business deal. It could be a coffee date. It could be, you know, an interaction with my kids, and I'm listening to what is the deepest part of me saying. Is it saying yes or is it saying no? And I get there through being connected to my sensuality and relaxing into my body. And when I relax into my body, the pleasure I get out of it is immense. Right? Pleasure that's so profound I had no idea it existed, but it exists in the subtlety. So I kind of have been reflecting on this whole process of, you know, in inverted commas, vanilla sex. And I think you've lost it if you can classify vanilla sex as something that's less than satisfying, because there are so many practices of intimacy that require no movement to feel extreme pleasure. Right? But this is about the connection to the energy, the movement of the Kundalini energy, I suppose. Yeah. And our connection to our own bodies that, you know, I'm totally digressing here, but that we have the ability to awaken within ourselves those pleasureful pathways.
It doesn't need to be anybody else doing that.
But it does honestly all begin with this body, this vessel, and coming back. Sounds so cliche, but coming back home to the reverence of that, you know. And I have a beautiful scented oil that I just like adore, and it would be, you know, probably twice a week. You know, when I'm feeling connected to doing that, I'm standing in front of the mirror and I'm rubbing this oil over my breasts and over my skin, and I'm feeling it as I'm touching myself. I might say a loving mantra. And I'm just going, oh, thank you. Or, you know, just feeling, I don't even have to say that, right? Just feeling this vessel, relaxing into my body, feeling connected to my body. And, you know, that I think is greatly missing. There's so much shame that we've forgotten to have reverence just for these curves. You know, these curves, no matter how they come, have profound power. Like profound, right? I mean, you even go back to the story of Adam and Eve, like her hips beckoned, and the way that you know, that this is the power of the feminine, is that it plugs in underneath the rational masculine. That, you know, if Adam just followed her, because that is the power of the feminine. She didn't, you know, strangle him to the ground and say, you eat this apple.
No. He was seduced by her. Exactly. But not like she was actively seducing him. He was just seduced by her feminine.
Yes, that's my point, right? And, I mean, there's a big backstory to that, and I in no way diss Eve, but this is the power that we're not connected to as well, and getting it, I was going to say before as well, the art of flirtation, I think, is greatly underestimated, that we have this whole story, and I had this story where flirtation equals sex. But I think that's how we're cultured as young women. Yeah. And in actual fact, flirtation is one of the most ancient art forms of the feminine. It is absolutely a profound way to create connection and a win-win and have everybody leaving any interaction feeling good.
Yeah.
You flirt with your baby. You flirt with a puppy.
Yeah.
You flirt with your friends when you're feeling a little bit sassy and funny and coy.
Yeah.
Do you flirt with the bar waiter? Do you flirt in a business deal in a way that isn't sexual, but a way that, you know, there's this energy that comes into the room and you're both just feeling good? Like the art form of flirtation is just an energy form of lifting two people's energy, connecting it in and bringing it up and creating a win-win out of that. So you walk away feeling better than when you started it.
Yeah. And who doesn't want that?
Who doesn't want that? And it's so powerful. Oh my goodness. When I'm consciously aware of that power, man, some of the business deals I've done have been like amazing.
Pretty sweet. It is quite.
And that's not because I'm sitting here going, you know, I want to have sex with you and that's what I'm offering you, because it's not. But what I'm doing is, one, opening my heart space up. So this is another practice I do regularly, is when we're feeling tight in our upper chest where your heart is, your heart space, consciously putting your shoulders back, stretching that out, opening it up like wings, just being aware that this is your bloom that opens you up and that there's a level of vulnerability with that. So I would always meet someone with that heart space and I look for the king in this person or the queen in this person. Where is this genius? And when we talk about every person has an interaction with us, that's what I'm looking for. Show me your genius.
And I think this is a beautiful, practical expression of that Rumi quote, which is, wherever you are, be the soul of that place. Because this is a willingness for you to allow your soul to see that person's soul, but express yourself in a very human way that makes that person feel full up, and feel really valued and grateful for your presence.
Listening, speaking in another person's values, opening your heart space. These
being
are
really
incredibly powerful feminine tools beyond what you have even scoped, I bet. So you start playing with those in your life and profound things happen, right? You start awakening flirtation with your husband, which is so deeply touch, flirtation, the honeymoon stuff, right? Doesn't have to go. You're not less of a woman now, you're more. And the more you root into that power, the closer you get to 40, I would say, the more profound that awakening is. Like, you are just like, yes, yeah, So, and the art of adornment, this is again a feminine art form, right? But I hate that concept of adornment of makeup or clothing or whatever we're wearing as covering up what is imperfect or creating a persona that is not authentic or that we have to be this to be okay. That is not the art form of adornment. But the art form, the ancient feminine art form of adornment, back in tribal days, this was happening, right? This isn't a recent cultural act. We know that so many ancient cultures painted their eyes and their skin and their lips and drenched themselves in jewels, whatever, and feathers and cloth or whatever it was they had. No, this is an ancient feminine art form that is designed to express to the world the gratitude you have for this vessel, this beauty that is, in essence, divinely God or goddess, right? This has been handed to you, this vessel, this creation, this connection to the divine. If we have come from the divine in whatever form we perceive that to be, you are literally the living embodiment of that. And the art of adornment is the bowing down at the altar, the offering of the incense and the food to that god or goddess, or in whatever form you offer that to your deity.
It's like a ritual of gratitude.
That's what it is for this creation. And that the art form of adding on makeup or clothing that feels deeply you, that says yes to you when you put them on. I do this every morning when I'm opening up my wardrobe. What do I want to wear today? What am I feeling called for? What matches my vibe and how I'm feeling? How can I authentically express to the world on the outside how I am on the inside? Now, I never wear makeup, so that for me is not, I have a whole backstory to needing that and now not, and I've still got work to do there. But it's just this act of honouring and of saying to the world, here I am, and showing up for you because it authentically feels like you, And I run a organic co-op, as you know too, and one of the women who work there is a sister of one of the mums at school, and she said to me, the other day, she said, you left, and then this new woman there said, oh my gosh, she is so beautiful. And I just thought, I wasn't wearing makeup or anything, but I just thought, that is such an affirmation to, like, she's not witnessing my external, she's witnessing my internal, right? Yeah. And I don't have I don't have anyone's style. I'm just going, this is me, I'm vibing me, and this is how it goes. And I wear loads of clashing colours and patterns and, stuff that is not traditionally country road, but that feels amazing. So in essence, it looks amazing, right? Because I'm carrying myself, I'm not carrying someone else.
And that's the difference, right? Like, am I wearing this because it's uniquely me and it feels authentically me to wear this? Or am I choosing this because I'm subordinated to some idea of what's trendy or what's, what I should look like, because you can have two people wear the same thing, but it's the intention with which they're wearing them, or the intention with which they're adorning themselves, that is what is expressed, whether we're conscious of it or not. And that's what's expressed in you.
Yeah. So all of these things for me are sensual practices, but they literally make up a day, right? So there's almost not a moment in my day where I'm not having a sensual practice, because from the food I eat to what I choose to drink, to how I drink it, to how I experience it, to what I put on my body, to how I touch my body, to how I touch another person, to how I touch them on a heart space as well as a physical level, is all sensual.
Yeah.
But women are largely unconscious to that, so they don't, relax into their bodies, fill it up to the extent that is possible. You know what I mean? And when we do that, that is what is awakening, that is what is life-changing, and that is what makes us want to share this gloriousness with an intimate person.
It all starts with you. It begins with how we feel about ourselves, and that's what we always keep coming back to.
Would you say you have any other sensual practices?
No, I mean, for myself, a lot of it is using the shower to really deeply connect with myself on a physical level. So just by the awareness with which I lather soap on my body, particularly now, like, rubbing my belly, and talking to my baby, that, sometimes you can lose time in your shower and forget you even had a shower. I really try to bring intention to that, to really just be grateful for my body for the day it's given me.
For how you felt and what you've experienced.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't feel and experience that unless you had this body.
Exactly. Certainly being aware of the conversation I'm having with myself as I'm applying makeup, and just being aware of how that's transformed as I've grown as a woman. How it's now, there's really not any negative self-talk there now. It's simply just, this is who I am, which is, very different to my teenage self, which most people, I'm sure, can identify with. And being grateful for that journey too, like to where I am now.
That's stepping into your womanhood, though. That is saying yes to that power that is within you. Yeah.
And noticing how I'm feeling about how I look. Do I feel that I look beautiful today, or do I feel like I look a bit flat? Why is that?
Conscious, yes. I must admit I did that too. Yeah. Why is that, and how can I help you?
Yeah. But they're the two most simplest that I would do.
I think they're beautiful practices. So we really hope that you've got something out of this, and if you would like us to delve a little deeper on any of this, then please send us an email or a Facebook post, or we would love to see your sensual rituals on our timeline if you're going to take a photo and post it for us.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I'd love that.
That'd be really fun to see how these ripples of sensual feminine awakening are happening in our tribe. That would be like unbelievable. Love it. Yeah. And to connect with us is nourishingthemother.com.au. Please rate our podcast on iTunes, share it if it's really speaking to you. This is what lets iTunes know that you want this podcast, and it gets it out to more mums, which is great. Yes. And Bridget, to connect with you.
Yes, suburbansandcastles.com. And you, Jules?
thepleasurenutritionist.com.
So until next week, when we continue to peel back the layers on your mothering journey.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/The Wellness Couch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives. Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.